Well, hello, it's been a while, but I am back with another video. And this one is on the McDonald Douglas AV8B Harrier, the carbon fiber one, the last variant that the United States Marine Corps used. Give you a good look. This is a Unimax Call of Duty kind of setup. It's in 1/32 scale and be the subject of this little video. The engine in this plane is a Bristol Pegasus 2, 23,000 pounds of thrust, with a top speed of anywhere between 662 miles per hour to 735 miles per hour, depending upon what tweaks. This is not a supersonic plane, it is a transonic plane. It's armed with a 25 millimeter, which had been mounted right there, GAU 12 equalizer 25 millimeter cannon, and it's a high explosive round, 360 rounds. It can carry 2 Mark 82 or Mark 83 bombs. These are Mark 83, so they're the 1,000-pound variants. And it can also carry the Paveway laser guided 1,000-pound bomb. So either free fall or laser. It has 4 AIM 120 AMRAAMs, which are fire and forget beyond visual range missiles, and basically that sums up the basics of this plane. I'm going to try to retract the landing gear on this so you can see it in its form, which is easy to do with these because this is a fairly durable, and I'm not going to get too crazy with that because watch it mess up and I look like a fool. But let's see if I can get this all to retract. Oh, forgot how to get this in. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it's the opposite way. I got it. This thing is incredible as far as the mechanisms on this, even as far as the Kobe's, which are my favorites. Sort of primitive compared to this. This thing retracts in here very nice. It's not going in all the way. I'm going to close it as much as I can, but just so you get the hint. And there we go. This plane has been used by both the Royal Navy and by the United States Marine Corps. I'm going to specify everything to usage by the United States Marine Corps. These are able to be put on light carriers, amphibious assault ships, and are very important. Marine aviation is basically close support with some ability to do combat as a dogfighter, fighter interceptor. The Harrier, what makes the Harrier so great is the thrust vectoring of the Pegasus engine. What that does is it's a deadly dogfighter. It can do vectoring, thrusting, which for sudden braking and higher turning radiuses. In other words, these engines can go like this. Retract them into their in-flight. They move, continuously move. So these engines can maneuver in such a way that this plane can turn very tightly. And since it's not supersonic, it's going at a slower speed. Those are speeds that you can maneuver and dogfight at. And it'll turn very tightly, allowing the enemy plane to overfly, thus overshoot it, and get killed by the 25 millimeter gun that's over there, or by one of the AMRAAM missiles. These planes were never certified for dropping nuclear weapons, but the Paveway bomb and the GBU 82-83 bombs are perfect for close support. And that's what this plane did. It could go with a Marine Assault Division, giving them air support of a basically transonic all-weather jet. What makes this plane better than the original Harrier, which was revolutionary but very complex, it has fly-by-wire like the F-16. It has digital components, all-weather capability, good cockpit where you have a good view of everything. So I can put this so you can see the cockpit a little bit better. Oh, there we go. I don't want to drop it and make a mess. But the pilot is set in a good position where he can see everything and actuate all the controls without any issues, able him to complete his mission. And the sad thing is that this plane was replaced by the F-35. The last flights of this plane were this past June, when there was retired out of Marine Corps service in lieu of the F-35. I think they kind of made a mistake. The F-35 is Mach 1 capable, which is supersonic. It's stealth capable, and it has everything enclosed inside of it. As far as like a dogfighter, I don't know if it can do that. This plane can't. This is not a plane you want to get into a turning dogfight with because of the thrust vectoring of these engines. I mean, it could turn extremely tight and slow itself down. Where, like I said, it'll skip you. It's behind you, and it'll just destroy you with its cannon or with one of the AMRAAM missiles. It can also carry sidewinders, but most of the versions now, which are the later versions, carry the AMRAAM in basically an assortment of those bombs, the GB bombs, and the Mark 82, 83 bombs. And it did serve well for the Marine Corps. It has started its combat experience extensively in the Gulf War of 1990-91. In fact, I have a die-cast 172 scale version from there that I have. But I'd rather use this one. This one's better detail. It's a 132nd scale, so it's easier to see and look at it. It was based on the USS Nassau and the USS Tarawa, and the first combat was January 17th, 1991 during Desert Storm. It also participated in 1999 in NATO's bombing of Yugoslavia and air support over the Kosovo thing that they had going on. And in that little thing, it was using the free fall bombs and the GB bombs to knock out the paveway bombs to knock out various targets, and it performed pretty well. I mean, it's a survivable aircraft. After that, it served in the Second Iraq War, in 2001, and was also in Afghanistan after 9/11. It could typically operate some small aircraft carriers, large amphibious airships, and very simple forward operating bases because of the way it can land. It can land like a helicopter, and it can take off like a helicopter. The F-35 can land like a helicopter, but the F-35 thrust vectoring cannot take off like this, like the Harrier can, and then just take off and do what it needs to do. There's a level of versatility that the Marine Corps lost in moving away from this, going to the F-35, and even though they adopted the F-35, they were still flying this year because it's a great close support, and it's a deadly combat aircraft in terms of getting involved in a dogfight and closing and turning dogfight where the plane's maneuverability comes to play, being its strongest point, which this plane did pretty well. As far as this one versus the other Harriers, there was a lot of carbon fiber used in this. In fact, it was called the carbon fiber McDonald Douglas AV8B Harrier 2. And like I said, it had fly-by-wire, totally digital controls, not as harsh as the older one. What that means is that a pilot trained in this could fly this with relative ease and with relative confidence that it can master the plane and its systems without having to fight it like fighting a bucking Bronco or like an old 1960s muscle car without power steering and power brakes, where muscle power and just sheer momentum were able to make it work. And this plane didn't need to do that. And the Marines, I think, very cautiously didn't want to get rid of this plane because for all the roles that they're assigned, and like I said, this thing also could be used in a crewed airfield kind of situation. where it can be landed there and then brought into play in combat, which is what you want. You want something that's fast, dependable, can be maintained in rough conditions, and fly, which this thing did. The only thing that this thing did not bring to the table is supersonic speed. It is a transonic aircraft, but it performs extremely well on the roles that it has to execute, and it served very well. I believe there were a total of 824 of these planes built between 1969 and 2003, counting the first versions and these newer modified versions. And the older versions that the Marine Corps had were modified to the standards of this AV8B. But this is a different plane than the first one because, like I said, use of carbon fiber, titanium metals, and just production things that they did for this variant and manufacturing techniques to make it more modern and keep it current. And it was. And like retiring this out of military service is kind of a, I don't know, kind of a dumb thing, I guess, when you see the kind of wars we have, like what's going on now in Iran. Iraq is a done thing. Iraq's actually going to probably turn on Iran. In that kind of a war, this plane would be superb because the elements wouldn't kill it. It could go anywhere. The only thing it would have going against it was its lack of really crushing high-speed Mach 2 flight, Mach 2 plus, but basically most of the work is done at speeds that are under the speed of sound because fuel becomes a premium when you have to go flying full out high speed. So basically what you're seeing now is just a retired, very, very good aircraft that the Marines were able to fly and do pretty well. I don't have a 137, well I do have a MiG-17. I'll give you a comparison. Kind of similar in sizes, but this plane would definitely win in a dogfight because of the thrust vectoring ability of the engines, enabling it to turn tighter, slower, and be right there to make the kill when it had to happen. And then turn around and use its bombs to take out whatever ground targets are there. So basically there you have it. As much as I could put as far as information, that is the AV8B Harrier 2, McDonald Douglas production, and British Aerospace, because they were building Sea Harriers, are built to the same specifications as this, and a great plane, a Cold War design, and still has functionality today. And I'm surprised they didn't try to update it and put it up against the F-35 and make it go a little faster, maybe Mach 1-ish, 1 point something like the F-35, and I think it could have done. It would lack in the stealth part, but for the kind of combat these planes do, I don't think the stealth thing was that much of an important issue as far as having a plane that be able to do the job, dominate, provide air superiority for its troops, and survive the actual combat. So what you get is this, and that'll be it for this video. I know a few people requested me to do this, and that's why I did this. And like I said, this is an interesting plane, and it did a lot for us during the Gulf War, during the war in Afghanistan, and the second war in Iraq. An extremely well used aircraft, which right now is a museum piece. But that kind of happens. We're going to go back to a World War II kind of a theme. I have a Kobe ME-109G in 1/32 scale. I will put it together and I will do a video on this plane specifically, not the E, not the F, not the whole history, just this particular plane, because this was the Luftwaffe's main plane from 1942 probably to 1945. More so than the FW-190, because this thing could climb higher. But there were some idiosyncrasies, which I'll get into with this, but this will be the next video. So for all of you World War II buffs, in the next couple of days, I will have this, and I will try to have more videos. Being that we might go in on the ground in Iran, I can do stuff with the M1, the Abrams tank, other types of equipment that you might see there, and kind of relate to what would happen. And this kind of plane, like I said, it would have been great for right there. Why they don't want to keep it, maybe because of fatigue of the airframes and stuff, but it's been improved and updated and upgraded, but maybe the technology just doesn't fit. But like I said, this thing did its job when it needed to do it. So that'll be the end of this. I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and see you on the next one.